the truth about the blue passport is we could have had a blue passport without leaving the European Union. There's nothing in the European Union rules which says what colour your passport has to be. So if the best thing the government can come up with about Brexit is that we can change the colour of our passport, to me that just speaks about how much chaos they're in.
Well, that's true.
We need to look at what Brexit is actually going to deliver, and there will be some upsides and downsides. And frankly, as a taxpayer, I'm perfectly happy if someone's getting a bargain elsewhere. I mean, we don't live in a world. How sovereign do we want to be? North Korea is sovereign, but they're cut off from the rest of the world.
Well, the problem is whenever people say the government is becoming like an episode of The Thick of It, I mean, this is one example, isn't it? Because they picked out the blue passport as a great thing and said, well, we're going to show the world how we can become, sort of self-determined, and we're going to tell everybody in Europe that we're going to run our own passport, we're going to have our own colour, and it's all gone horribly wrong.
Yeah, but there's a serious point here, which is that free trade deals will always have what they call a public procurement clause in them, right? Which is that you have to make sure that your public, because governments spend a huge chunk of GDP, that those projects are open to tender. And Whitehall, the government has an obligation to get value for money for taxpayers. And actually, if we stop doing that, if we put in control that say only British companies can bid for British contracts, that is, an absolutely retrograde and backward step in terms of Britain's economy.
The idea that trade is going to go on between the UK and loads of other countries is the point, isn't it?
Last time I checked.
I certainly don't think it's the most important thing about Brexit. I want to get on with Brexit. I think it's teeming with opportunity as long as we follow the right domestic policies. I want to get us out as quickly as possible, get back our fish, get our money to spend on our own priorities, start making sure we pass our own laws and negotiating our own trade future around the world. Those are the big bonuses from Brexit, and I'm getting frustrated because I want to get on with them.
Yes, indeed. Well, I mean, we've got the transition agreement more or less nailed down now, and Theresa May is going over for a bit of a sort of mini summit today, isn't she, to try and get that all kind of signed off, as it were. Are you happy with that transitional agreement?
No, not necessarily. I mean, the question is transition to what? And
Brexit, presumably.
See that nothing is agreed until everything is agreed, and we still haven't seen what it is that the EU has in mind and what we can agree with them over our future relationship. You don't need transition unless there is a really good future relationship to transit to.
But it's difficult, is it not, to not agree anything at this point? I mean, if they're not agreeing things on the way to the final agreement, then what would they be doing otherwise?
No, I don't disagree with them trying to sort out all the issues that the EU think are relevant, but it'd be quite nice if we sorted out some of the issues that we thought were relevant at the same time. And you're not going to have an agreement which the British people and Parliament will welcome unless it is a fair agreement, unless it includes some benefits for us. Any final agreement has to be better than leaving without a deal. And if we just left without a deal, we do get our money back immediately, we get control of our borders immediately, we get control of our fish in full, and we can go off and do our own trade deals. So a deal has got to be better than that, and I'm still waiting to see what offer the EU is going to come up with, which is clearly better than that.
Now, you've mentioned fish twice, so I assume this is a subject close to your heart. What did you make of that nonsense yesterday, the sort of Captain Pugwash affair of people throwing fish into the river and Mr. Rees-Mogg not even getting on the boat?
Well, I can understand why people want to make a protest, because the fishing industry was extremely badly damaged by the giveaway of our fishing interests when we first entered the European Economic Community. The fishing industry has been much reduced by having to observe all the silly rules of the common fishing policy, and our fishing grounds have been damaged at the same time. It would not be difficult for the UK to draw up a policy which was much kinder to our fish and to our fishermen, and that's what I want us to do, and that must be one of the prizes of Brexit.
But one of the things that has been agreed in this transitional period is that nothing changes, at least, so surely that's better than things changing for the worse, isn't it?
I want things to change for the better, and in every area I identified with you this morning, we can have change for the better. That was why a lot of us voted Brexit. I want the money back to spend as soon as possible, because we need that money for our health service and our schools and so forth. We can't afford $12 billion a year going to the EU. I want to get control of our fish as soon as possible so that we can have that better fishing policy, which preserves our fishing grounds for the future in better order and allows us to land and sell more fish at home, because we'd gone from being a net exporter of fish before we entered the EU to being a heavy net importer. It's just crazy.
And what about the whole situation in Northern Ireland? Because I suspect that this wasn't even something that anyone thought about before the referendum. Nobody said, "Well, what are we going to do about the border in Northern Ireland? Is it going to be soft? Is it going to be manned? Is it going to be a bunch of cameras? Is it going to be electronic?" Nobody really thought about it. Did you know that this was going to be such a big problem?
I don't think it is a big problem. I mean, what you have to understand is there is already a complex border in Northern Ireland because there are different excise rates on each side of the border. There's a different currency on each side of the border. There are different income tax rules, different VAT requirements. And so already there's a lot of electronic paperwork that has to be processed. People selling from the Republic into Northern Ireland or the other way have to conform with all those different taxes and currency rules. And you don't need someone with a calculator at the border stopping every truck. It's all done electronically, and that's what would happen if we had customs dues as well.
Yeah, that's what they do, is it not, between Norway and Denmark? But a lot of people say that doesn't work terribly well because it takes as long as 9 minutes per lorry in some cases. So lorries are queuing up and taking an awfully long time to get from one country to another.
Yes, but I just explained to you, we already have a complex border between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland, and there aren't lorries queuing. It isn't an issue.
Well, when you say a complex border... Well, hang on, John.
Your manifest. Why is that going to cause problems?
Well, when you say a complex border, exactly what do you mean? My understanding of the border between Northern Ireland and the Republic is that it hasn't been a proper border for a long time. In fact, it's a Good Friday Agreement.
But it's a very important electronic border of the kind that we're describing. I'm just explaining to you that if you sell something across that border, you do have to make a VAT filing, an excise filing, you have to change the currency. There are an awful lot of things that have to be done to comply with the different government authorities on each side of the border and to pay any tax that is due. And so if customs are also going to be introduced, I still hope there won't be customs, but the EU might want customs, then you just add another line to the electronic manifest. You're already doing calculations on tax.
So for you, this is a very simple solution then. It seems like you're the only person I've ever spoken to, John, who thinks this is not a massive problem.
Well, I think there are a lot of people who don't think it's a problem. It's just that they're not allowed any time on the airways. All that most of the media ever do. It
starts sounding like conspiracy theories.
And all these people who regret the result of the referendum and are trying to make difficulties.
Oh, OK. And so what will you hope that Theresa May gets out of this summit today?
Well, I'm hoping that she stresses to the EU that the UK has been generous to a fault so far in the negotiations, and it's high time the EU woke up and offered us something that we wanted. Otherwise, I can't see the British people wanting to sign the deal.